Hello, and I'm so excited to be speaking to you today. I'm April Owens, and I'm the Executive Director of the Habitat Corridor Project. And I also am the Horticulture Chair for the Native Plant Society. So I got the opportunity with this eco-friendly garden tour to talk to you guys about design. And I've been designing landscapes with California native plants and eco-friendly gardens. We call them sustainable or resilient for about the last 20 years. And I'm always excited to be able to pass on this information to you all. And I'm going to give you a lot of information at the end of websites that you can go to and places you can learn more. So the Habitat Corridor Project is a demonstration garden organization. We really want to teach people how to use natives and provide free plans so that you can take out your lawn and use these plants in your garden. And so our website has a lot of information about that. And we also have a lot of demonstration gardens to teach that message. So wait till the end and we'll talk to you. I'll talk to you about where you can go to see these plants and see these gardens, as well as the California Native Plant Society, whose mission is to conserve California native plants and their habitats. So this combination we've been working together for quite a few years with the Eco-Friendly Garden Tour. And usually before the pandemic, we were able to invite you all to our gardens, and the Native Plant Society would come out and groom them and get them all ready, and then have all these volunteers there to teach you about these plants. That hasn't happened in the last couple of years, and so the videos have to hold that place. And I'm hoping that next year we will all be in person together. The garden that I represented or showed in the garden tour is a resilient landscape. So we'll talk here about designing resilient landscapes. I'm a member of the Resilient Landscapes Coalition as well, and my nonprofit, the Habitat Corridor Project, we've signed on with this wonderful group of people that is the Sonoma Ecology Center and the UC Master Gardeners and the Habitat Corridor Project, with some CNPS involvement. So resilient landscapes are capable of withstanding shock without permanent deformation or rupture. And we look at it from a systems thinking perspective. So we are looking at drought and fire and development and biodiversity as we design these gardens. We use native plants. We conserve water by using native plants, and we prepare for fire in our landscapes using defensible space zone principles. So we think about defensible space zones in your garden. And zone 0 is that 0 to 5 from your home. And we call that the ember-free zone. And so we'll go into that more with some pictures, but that is really, you really want to keep plant material to almost 0, if not just a tiny bit. So we can look at that. Zone 1 is the 5 to 30 foot from the home. And we call that the clean and green zone. Lots of maintenance, lots of beautiful native plants, well hydrated and maintained. And zone 2 is the 30 to 100 feet from the home. And I personally call that the biodiversity zone. And you have areas that in that zone, you can have larger groupings of plants and larger islands of plants to create your habitat garden. In the 0 to 5, we use a lot of different things. You can use decorative rock and boulders. You can use permeable hardscape and patios. This is an area for like fountains and water features. I'm a 100% native kind of designer, but if you like some non-natives, this is a great area to do some containers with well-hydrated annuals or non-native plants. So you can get your pansies in this area. You can have some pretty containers, and you can use a little bit of low growing, well hydrated plants, and less is definitely more in this space. My whole thinking around native, like this 0 to 5 has changed, and our whole Resilient Landscaping Coalition, at first we were like, maybe you leave grandma's lilac or a rose. And now with the intensity of fires in our area, it's really important to get any shrubs out of this area. So here's some nice decorative pebble that you can use in this photo. It's nice to go through these photos because I can always edit things out. You know, during the fire season, and fire season can be all year right now, you want to move that barbecue out of the 0 to 5. You want to make sure that wine barrel is out of the 0 to 5, as well as piles of wood, any, you know, garbage containers, recycling containers. You want those out of the 0 to 5 and to keep it really clear. And you can head on over to your local materials yard, and there's a plethora of different materials that you can play with in this space. This is one of the grasses that I use a lot in my design business. It's a Delta bluegrass product called Nomo fescue. This one's actually California bentgrass. The only problem with this in your 0 to 5 is it does need to be hydrated in the summer, and this grass can dry out and not use any water in the summer. So out of the 0 to 5, you can like let it brown out, but in the 0 to 5, you need to give it a little more water and make sure it's hydrated in order for it to serve that purpose. In the 5 to 30, you're looking at low growing, low fuel, well-maintained, you know, and this is the area where you do islands. I know we oftentimes tell you islands and don't say how big they are. I would say 5 feet by 10 feet at the most, separated by well-maintained lower growing plants, separated by rock mulch and pathways between the planting groups. It's okay to use arbor mulch in these plant islands around the plants to save water amongst the plants. You want to make sure that your plants are well hydrated. And so native plants just need less water to hydrate, and they serve all these biodiversity resources and services. So native plants are definitely your go-to for this zone. Swales and rain gardens are this is a great spot for them. And think about your garden in the broader context. This photo is really good. So this is probably a 20-foot typical urban landscape. And then they have this wonderful break of the court and the driveway. And then their neighbor's home is that far away. So you can think of this 0 to 100 in context of your neighborhood as well, if you live in an urban environment. Here's a beautiful path and swale, a beautiful path through some islands of plantings of buckwheats and monkey flowers that provide a ton of habitat. In the background, there's Nomo fescue under a nice, wonderful place to land in a hammock. This is, again, thinking of the broader context of where your garden is. So this is one of our quarter project demonstration gardens, Bear's Meadow in Sebastopol, and we've used a tapestry of different ground covers that we are maintaining voraciously so that they can all take a ton of cutting and pruning to be very fire wise in throughout the year. And then also, even though this is a 0 to 5 looking photo, it's important to think of sidewalks and pathways and parking. So parking courts are a great things to think about in this 5 to 30. A swale is a low or hollow place, especially a marshy depression between ridges. I enjoyed looking that definition up because I fake them in many landscapes. So this was our Living Learning Landscapes garden that we have in cooperation with the UC Master Gardeners and the Sonoma Water partnership. And so we couldn't dig down because of volunteer and other issues. And so we decided to build up. So we used mounds around the edges and then planted so that there's what the swale actually is created in the middle so that the water soaks in and you're not losing water off the site, but you don't necessarily have to dig down into roots of plants, or there's a giant oak on the site. So we weren't harming the landscape by digging a swale, we created it on top. A rain garden is just a place to enjoy the rain because we don't get to see that very much in California. So when we get a storm event, these rain gardens, and I know that Daily Axe is talking about them in their portion of this talk, is a place to enjoy the rain. And then you see then the water soaks in slowly, and it never lasts long enough to encourage mosquitoes or anything. But you can add in higher water use plants along that maybe need a little bit more water. So they're getting, in the rainy season, they're getting a little more time to soak in and get their roots hydrated. So sometimes with buckeyes and some trees, I'll put rain gardens around them so that we don't necessarily have to give them more irrigation, like on drip or spray, but they get that added access to water. In the 30 to 100, we're looking at more habitat and larger islands. It's really the only difference. You still need to maintain those landscapes in those areas. And these are just some beautiful plants. And thinking about walls as well, oftentimes we think of the flat ground plane, but walls serve as fire breaks as well. And so stack stone walls or any kind of walls that you have in the landscape can serve that purpose. This is Sonoma sage, which is one of my favorites, dripping over the wall. And I call it apricot mallow. I think most people call it globe mallow. Is a lovely Streltsea that adds that beautiful different kind of flower in your garden that typically isn't typical, but it's super easy to grow. So what do we use in the 30 to 100 with in between these masses? You can, in this space, you can use arbor mulch or compost in the landscape as pathways. In the 5 to 30, we encourage you to use some kind of gravel or crushed rock. Gravel or crushed rock, mowed California native bunch grasses work well, like those early slides, or well-maintained ground cover like the Baccharis pileularis Twin Peaks in the bottom of the slide, which needs to be cut back every few years. So you still need to maintain your landscape. You can't just walk away. I just wanted to give you a couple tips for successful habitat plantings. You want to use many types of flowers. You want to use large groupings like pollinator targets. So we call it massing, but we mass plants together, at least 5, flowering at different times. That's really easy with native plants, and plants that provide both nectar and pollen sources. So quick and dirty, we just wanted to get you a bunch of information. We're excited about the question and answer period, but the demonstration gardens that we've created with our many partners are, so you can go out and see these gardens. You can look at our website, or you can head over to the Sonoma County Living Learning Landscapes on Elliott Avenue, adjacent to the Santa Rosa JC, where we have, right now we have 4 beautiful gardens, one of which we created with the master gardeners, and that show off these drought tolerant, low water use, or same thing, biodiverse, but they are downloadable off the website, livinglearninglandscapes.com, with full professionally designed irrigation plans by Sonoma Water. So you get your beautiful landscape plan and your irrigation plan with water use. And there's 4 that are installed that you can go see, and there's 4 on the website that have been designed, and there's 3 more from the master gardeners on there that are so lovely that are going to be installed in the next few years. So you can still download them and see those beautiful plans. We just finished the Recology headquarters on 3400 Standish with a pollinator garden that is open to the public. And the Sebastopol Center for the Arts in Sebastopol is a lovely place. It's been in there for 5 years, and we encourage you to go down and see these plants in person. So I want to throw some websites at you. The Sonoma ResilientLandscapes.com is our Resilient Landscapes Coalition website. It's being redesigned right now, but there's a ton of amazing information there about resilient landscapes. The LivingLearningLandscapes.com. HabitatCorridorProject.org is our website. CNPS.org is the CNPS website, and MiloBakerCNPS.org is our local chapter of the California Native Plants Society, which I encourage you all to join if you are interested in natives and learning more. They send out beautiful magazines, and our Milo Baker chapter has field trips and wonderful lecture series. So there's just so much for you to learn, even in this small bit of information I've been giving to you. And for now, I'll send this off and close this out. And I'm excited to hear your questions in the question and answer.